Assalamu alaikum to you, Doctor, and welcome to Hilaal Live Hajj Special.
Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh from the Holy Lands. We're currently in Makkah, on the outskirts of being in a place called Azizia, and it's an absolute honor, firstly, to be here, and an absolute honor also to be invited by you to be your guest this afternoon or this evening, inshallah.
Absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for agreeing to talk to our viewers as well as us here in the studio. So just to get to know how you are doing, Dr. Parker, what is the spirits like? What is the spiritual environment like, your emotions? Where are you at and the Hujjaj at the moment?
Okay, from a personal point of view, I've had no Hajj contact for 3 years. So the last visit I had as a Hujjaj, as a Haji, or as a Hajj doctor was in 2019. So there was a 3-year gap. And really, I had severe separation anxiety, severe separation depression. So just being here, being back amongst the masses, being one of those 9 that goes into a square meter of people at density at any one time during the peak of Umrah and Tawaf and Sa'i, it's really another level of spiritual upliftment. So alhamdulillah, from my own perspective, I am absolutely elated to be back here, and also from the Hujjaj, because most of them are first timers. Most of them are going to be experiencing this type of journey for the first time in their lives, and I must add, probably for the only times in their lives. So even though the weather is extremely hot at the moment, the spirit amongst the Hujjaj that I've been encountering, whether they're sick or not, has been amazing. I mean, really, these are baby steps for the big days that are coming within the next week, inshallah. So really, spirit of elation, spirit of togetherness, spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood, and a spirit that life can only get better, inshallah, after this.
So I believe you visited the holy cities and also looking at the Ramadan Umrah. We know that Ramadan Umrah is very busy, and you've, alhamdulillah, have visited many times as well. Talk to us about Umrah during the holy month of Ramadan. That's a very busy time compared to Hajj.
Yes, but the statistics are quite staggering. If you look at this past Ramadan, for example, the number of Umrah pilgrims during the first 20 days was 20 million. That is a large number of people. If you're looking at the number of people coming for Hajj itself, we're looking at about between 2 to 3 million. The figures vary for the current period. 2013, for example, we had 7 million people. So you can't really compare the Umrah, which is a shorter period, or that people come for, and which doesn't really have the specific sequence that Hajj has to Hajj itself. Now, it is known that the reward for Umrah during Ramadan is the equivalent of Hajj. But we have to bear in mind there is a difference between the reward being the equivalent of Hajj and replacing Hajj. It doesn't replace the Hajj. Yes, the reward is the same, but the obligation for Hajj will still remain. Whether you've done 20 Umrahs during Ramadan or not, it doesn't replace the fact that you must come at least once in your lifetime for Hajj. And I think that's an important aspect that we have to remember about Hajj and any of the other pilgrimages, such as Umrah or such as other ones that we find within Islam and within other religions as well.
I'm so glad you highlighted earlier as well. Let me add, sometimes the only Hajj you're going to be performing, because that's very true, because of the quota, because of ill health, various reasons. So often...
Yeah, so if I must just put that into perspective for you, if we look at there's only 7 billion people, I know it's more, but say if there's only 7 billion people on this earth, we know about 1.7 billion of them are Muslims. So if no one gets born and no one dies, in other words, those numbers remain static, and only 4 million people are allowed to perform Hajj every year, it will take 375 years for each Muslim that's living currently to perform Hajj just once. So the reality is that two-thirds of Muslims will never ever perform Hajj. So those who have been blessed to perform Hajj, those who are here now, those who have done it before, and those who will do it in the next few years, will be of the privileged few that will actually set foot on Arafah. And I think that is important. take into account.
Yeah, Salam, 2/3. We have to just take that all in. Looking at the aspect of mass gatherings, you do research within religious gatherings and understanding, the masses. Let's look at some of the larger gatherings and the research that you have done and the stats around that.
Right. If you consider the largest mass gathering on earth, it's called the Kumbh Mela. Now, the Kumbh Mela doesn't take place every year. It takes place every 3 years in India. It's a Hindu mass gathering. Now, it rotates between 4 venues in India. So every 3 years, it goes from one venue, then the next 3 years. After 3 years, it goes to another one. And every 12 years, takes place at a place ironically called Allahabad in the northern part of India. And this is where the Ganges River, what's also known as the Ganga River, meets the Yamuna River. And at this confluence, every 12 years, the Grand Kumbh Mela takes place. And the last one was in 2013, and 100 million people took part in it over a period of 55 days. Okay. The next one will be in 2025, and they expect 150 million people to attend it, also over a period of about 2 months. But remember, we're talking of an event that takes place over a longer period. Mm-hmm. Everyone doesn't come at the same time, and that's different from Hajj. So that is the largest one ever.
That's some crazy numbers. Yeah. How does Hajj differ from that?
Yes, remember, Hajj takes place every year. Mm-hmm. Hajj is an obligation in the lives of each and every person, at least once in their lives, as long as they firstly have the financial means, as long as they're healthy enough to do it, and as long as the way is safe, then it's an obligation. So yes, there's a desire to perform it, but it becomes an obligation if those 3 criteria are met. So that is how it differs. And again, as I mentioned, also from Umrah as well. So that is the largest mass gathering. Then if you look at another one that takes place annually, every year, and this is the Arba'in in Iraq. About 20 million people attended it in 2017. And they, again, if you look at it compared to Hajj, it's not an obligation. Yes, it is a good pilgrimage for especially the Shias Muslim to undertake, but it's mostly locals who come. It takes the crux of it takes place over a period of 2 days when people travel from Najaf to Karbala. And again, it's mostly locals. Even though 2 to 3 million come from Iran, the vast majority come from Iraq itself. Compared to the Hajj, because we're going to be doing that all the time, yes. Most of the pilgrims come from overseas. About 2/3 of the pilgrims for Hajj come from overseas, and they tend to be older. We know that about 50% of the Hujjaj are over the age of 55 years old. So it's older people who come. It's once in their lifetime. They come for a longer period. And because of the age, they tend to have medical conditions attached to them as well. So I want to talk about one that takes place in South Africa. It's called the Zion Christian Church annual Easter meeting, which takes place over the Easter period in a place called Moria to the north of Pretoria. About 10 million people go there every Easter. Sure. But again, it's younger people. The average age is about 30. They only come for a weekend and then they leave. So it doesn't compare to the Hajj. Because during the Hajj, they set rituals. Everyone has to do the same type of ritual. For example, you have to be on Arafah at a specific time, on a specific day. If you're not on Arafah, there's no Hajj. So you can't really compare any other gathering with Hajj itself. And there's 2 other Muslim mass gatherings that are well known. The one is the Bijwa Istima, which takes place in Bangladesh. About 2 to 3 million, sometimes 4 million people go just on the outskirts of Dhaka, a place called Koti. And it's also over a weekend. There's lots of prayers and so forth. But again, it's mostly locals who come. Only of the 4 million people who were there in 2016, only 50,000 were foreigners, and it's for a short period again. And there again, it's people who've been there before. They like what's happening, so they go again and again and again. And then there's the last one I want to mention. Takes place in Senegal. It's called the Grand Magal. Okay. Also a Muslim one. About 3 to 4 million people go over a weekend again, mostly locals. comparing it to Hajj now again. So again, what I'm trying to emphasize is Hajj is unique. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It's an obligation. It's the fifth pillar of Islam. It's different to all the other mass gatherings that I've referred to. It is really the beginning of life, of a new life for the vast majority of Hujjaj. But it's also, and we can talk about that a bit later, it's an end story. It's this final wish, it's a final desire of certain people, because that is what they've lived for all their lives. And I've got plenty of vivid recollections of those people that I've encountered over the last 20 years as far as that's concerned.